Welcome back to Planarchy. I'm Kalin Jordan, and I'm here with my co-host, Katherine Tipper. Today, we are kicking off a series of episodes leading up to Women's Retirement Security Day on July 14th. The retirement savings gap between men and women is real and it's well documented. Women's median 401k balance is 65% lower than men's. Contributions are 43% lower, and women are still less confident about retirement than men, even when they're participating in a plan. So over the next few weeks, we're hearing from women who are working to change that, each bringing a different story and a different perspective. And our first guest is Sheri Melvin. Sheri has spent her career inside mission-driven organizations, most recently as People and Culture Advisor at the Union of Concerned Scientists, and before that as Senior Director of Human Resources and Administration at the National Endowment for Democracy, where she spent nearly 15 years. Sheri is a board member of Plan Sponsors Council of America and is helping to organize and mobilize around the first ever Women's Retirement Security Day. She's deeply embedded in HR and at the advocacy world, and we are so excited to have her here. Welcome, Sheri.
Terrific. Thank you for being here as well. I'm excited.
I actually used to do work with the Union of Concerned Scientists, so we have like a little bit of overlap, which I thought was really nice. So I'm excited to have somebody on the podcast who I know what their work life is like because I've had experience being in a place like where you work. So let's just dive in with the fun stuff. I've been going to a lot of kids' baseball games this spring, and I've noticed that these kids take their walk-up songs really seriously, and they each have one. So I thought we would start with, what's your walk-up song?
My walk-up song is I'm Every Woman by Shaka Khan.
You should hear Philippe. You just got Filippo's vote back here. So.
And that includes being a mom, being a wife, being an employee, being a boss, being all of the things that song represents. So I'm Every Woman.
Nice. That might be one of my favorite ones I've heard so far.
Well, fantastic. Well, let's talk about your background and your career path. So you've built your career inside mission-driven organizations. What drew you to this world?
Coming from New Jersey, I started out in corporate America. I worked for the Shearing Plow organization, started in benefits there, which is now Merck, the big pharmaceutical company. And when I relocated to Maryland, I started at the Gillette company, still in pharmaceuticals. That is now P&G. And because I loved HR, my focus and my background was all in benefits. And I was the plan administrator for the 401k plan, the 403b plan. And I really got to see what saving for retirement really looked like. We had a profit sharing plan, we had a 403b, we had a 401k, and we also had a stock purchase plan. So those are the things that really helped shape me wanting to save for retirement. And we'll talk about my childhood upbringing and how that all played a part as well.
Fantastic. I'm always happy when I hear about that many benefit plans at one company. It makes me excited.
Which is unheard of these days because corporate America, they've gotten away from their pension plans and they've gotten away from their ESOP plans. But it's really, it's interesting to see the old 500 companies still having them.
Well, that leads straight into the next question, which you've spent your career in HR, which means you've had a front row seat to how organizations actually treat their people, not just how they say they do. You're seeing it working and it not working. So what did that teach you when you were in an organization that did this?
It taught me to advocate for self and always advocate for your people, because when you're in HR, your greatest asset is your people. And sometimes you're hiring people that are fresh out of college that don't know any real life scenarios. So you're really helping them shape their benefits, their overall acclimation into the organization and having a first time job. So it's education, it's advocacy. That's what really inspired me to really stay within HR, helping to support the people that are in the work. And I'm finding that by me having a benefits background, when they are struggling with claims or they're struggling with their health matters, whatever that is, I'm helping to support them in that space. And saving for retirement is also one of those ways to do that.
So you've worked both in, more corporate, profit margin companies, and then also in the mission driven. People who choose mission driven work tend to pour everything into it. What does that culture do in the way employees think about pay and their own financial security? Do you see a difference?
Do I see a difference in a culture-driven, mission-driven organization? I do.
Yeah.
Because the mission-driven organizations, you're taking jobs for lower pay. You're taking jobs because of the mission. And National Endowment for Democracy was one of my first jobs that was a mission-driven organization. And I wanted to be able to give back to the world. And National Endowment for Democracy is an organization that's a grant maker. They issue grants to organizations around the world that are fighting for freedom, fighting for democracy. So when you're looking at that space, we're not doing it for the pay. We're doing it because we want to help lasting impact. We want to help people that are really not able to afford the luxuries that we have. We are able to support them in a revolution, and that is meaningful. And I think that's the difference between working for an organization that is a for-profit, where, you're getting paid all of these bucks, but are you making an impact? Are you really getting to the heart of what it is that you really are doing for the work that you're doing? And that's what drove me to the mission.
Do you feel that tension in the mission-oriented position where people aren't being paid as much, so then it's hard to save for retirement? Is that really visible, or is it not very visible that there's a tension to you're doing amazing things, but you really don't have the income to really save for retirement much?
Yeah, there is some tension, and I guess it depends on the organization that you're also working for. So one of the things that I helped to implement was we did a whole compensation restructuring latter years that I was with the NED, and we pretty much ripped the Band-Aid off. We wanted to make sure that our people were paid comparably, both by male and female. We wanted to make sure that our people were marketable. So we did like a whole external market search to see if our people were really compared, if they were being paid fairly. And on some positions, they were really subpar. They were between 25 and sometimes 30% below. So when we did that, there were people that had life-changing moments, and they really told us, hey, I would have never made this much money in my lifetime. So some people got 20 to 30% increases for that. So I think the tension is there. And then don't bring in the loans. Like, people can't afford to save because they're paying loans. Right. So the tension is always there. But when you're trying to look at fair compensation across the board, whether it's for men or women or for jobs that are equitable, and sometimes compression kicks in. So you're paying the same money for somebody that just got the job to somebody that is been in the job for 10 years. So sometimes you have to embed some compression points there or increase the rates. Mm-hmm. But we did make a big effort on that. So the tensions are there. But I think it goes with the attitude that if you're taking a mission-driven job, you know that you're going to be paid a little bit less.
Do you think that there's I don't know what other word to use that would be like more almost an exploitive nature in that space, meaning, people are joining your organization because they align with your mission, they believe in it, and we know that they're taking their skill sets that could be more competitive in the market in a different sector, and they're bringing it here to your mission-driven organization and potentially taking a pay cut. But I always felt as a staff person that there was this pressure to just work nonstop to prove how much you believed in the mission and valued the mission and aligned with the mission, and much less of an emphasis on work-life balance, burnout, all of those kinds of things. Like, I think there's lip service to it, but when it comes to every day and grind out, everybody is working weekends, nights, events, all those kinds of things, right? So I'm just curious from your perspective if you've seen that happen in your role.
Yes, I have seen that happen in our role, especially during COVID. There were a lot of expectations where people had to just deliver, show up all the time, and people just didn't have that work balance I call it work-life integration, because sometimes you go from the office into your home environment and there's no separation. So people were feeling burnt out. And what we try to do is have like a listening tour to see how people are feeling. And we tried to put in some fun things to help them navigate. For 1 year, we sent like a gift box at home during Christmas, and it was a blend of all these different kinds of treats from all over the world. And that was a nicety. And then we did something, we tried to do small things like that that really recognized that we appreciated everything that they were doing. But at your question to the exploitation, sometimes it does feel like that, because we do remind people, hey, you took this job for the mission, and you knew what the salary requirements were, and you knew what the salary expectations were. But we tried to fix that in that compensation strategy that I just talked about.
Yeah.
It's a
Hard
real
stuff.
tension. Yeah. I would love to transition over to talk a little bit more about the retirement gap. So in a previous life, I spent a lot of time working on pay equity legislation in Massachusetts specifically. So when I hear you say New Jersey, I'm like, East Coast. And what always stuck with me is the impact the pay gap had on, it's not just one woman's life, it follows you into retirement. It affects somebody's family. We used to always say that the pay gap doesn't impact women, it impacts families. I'd be really interested to hear how did you see that play out on the organizations that you worked at? I mean, it sounds like you did it at NED. You worked really tirelessly to kind of close that gap. But I wonder if you could speak more maybe to when you were in corporate, if you saw that gap widen.
I would say that the gap existed, and part of HR's roles is to bring light to it. And you talk about transparency also, about shedding that light so that leadership knew. And part of my HR role was to always look at those metrics, because sometimes people don't know what they don't know. So when you shed light to it, and you make it a point to say, okay, these 5 women are not making as much as these 5 men that are in the same roles, figure out why. How did they get there? Why are they there? What can we do to fix it? And oftentimes we couldn't just fix it right away. If and when that was discovered, we would fix it like in increments, or maybe give a bonus to kind of bring up that salary. And oftentimes that's what my role as an HR leader was to do, just to shed light on the gaps, look at them not only for their base salary, but promotion opportunities. Are the women getting as much leeway with promotions as the men? That's also increasing that salary gap. So part of an HR leader, as myself, is to shed some light as to where those gaps are. And those are sometimes unintentionally discovered and unintentionally consequences, because this person has been there for years. Nobody's advocating for them. Nobody's looking at it until at the end of the
And in
year.
most places, you can't talk about your salary with your colleagues. It's illegal.
Absolutely.
That was one of the things when we passed legislation on pay equity, you were allowed to talk about your salary with your colleagues. Yes. And when you were being interviewed, you were not allowed to ask what somebody had made previously. That's right. Because that puts women at a real disadvantage. If they've historically made less, you're coming into a new company and you're kind of required to say what you made. And that also kind of puts you at that disadvantage. There's just so many different levers.
It does. And you have to think about it in terms of people are talking. They're really talking. They know what everybody is making. And you just have to stay ahead of the game and try to cut that off at the pass so that you can help them get their salary bumped up. And we don't look at it from an HR standpoint. I'm not looking at what are you making today? It's like, what are your salary expectations? Because if they are too high, this is the salary range and this is what we're paying. Is this something that is within your range? And the answer is yes or no. And then we figure out how to move forward in that recruitment process. So we want those expectations shared earlier on in the recruitment process.
I think you heard in the opening I was kind of quoting some data, and it's pretty striking. So women's median 401k balance is, like I said, 65% lower than men's, and contributions are 43% lower. And women are just less confident, even if they're participating in a plan. When you look at those numbers, what really stands out to you? Because it's startling.
It is. And it's unfortunate when I look at those numbers, I am like devastated sometimes. And one of the things that I'm trying to also do because of the work that we're doing is educating like my daughter's friends and just talking to my friends about what it is that they have. We don't often talk about that enough. And I think that's why this Women's Security Retirement Day is really paramount to help us get the word out that you really should be advocating for yourself and saving more for retirement. Those stats are just unrealistic. This is 2026. What can we do to help shape that and or to make it better and to reduce that number so that I would love to see it under 20%.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, if we're talking about women of color, those gaps are even wider. So Hispanic women contribute an average of 2,167 a year. Black women contribute about 1,500 less than white women, driven largely by the pay gap. So given all of that, it's such a more disheartening conversation because it's not even like all women are on the same playing field. It depends on your racial background as well. We've seen pay equity have that kind of an impact too. So I'm just curious, when you hear that, what do we need to be saying and doing that we're not doing to bring everybody up so that they can live comfortably when they retire and don't have to work until they're dead, basically?
I think a lot of it, again, is built around education. We need to be in the schools. We need to start in those urban sectors, in those urban schools where people are less fortunate because they just don't have the resources to have advocacy out there or know about the advocacy work. And I think there are high schools that we can partner with. We can adopt a school just to make sure that there's a course on that platform that says, let's financial literacy 101. I think high school sometimes is a little bit too late. Maybe start at the middle school level and just get that education out there. I think that women often have to take lower paying jobs because, when you're looking for work, you need a job. You need to pay your rent, your mortgage, your car note, whatever it is to feed your family. And sometimes out here, it's hard looking for a job. So people often settle. Black women sometimes just settle. And that also increases the gap because they're taking lower paying jobs and they're not able to save as much because they're having to do everything else for their families. And sometimes they have to take care of other family members that are not a part of their household.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things I really enjoyed in talking to you in general was that, like you've already mentioned, that, in your family, you talk about money and it's not a taboo subject. You have this idea that you're going to teach the next generation about money. You come from a family that believes in that, right? And you told me a story about how just a simple object was used to teach people. So could you tell us again what that story was where your family was able to pass on those concepts to people?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So my mom, I grew up in New Jersey. I was the youngest of four. My parents were both in the household and at some point separated. But my mom always said to us, pay yourself first, no matter what. The bills will be here, but always pay yourself first. So we had bank day in my elementary school where every Tuesday we were taking money to school. There was a bank in the school, and then we were able to collect all the monies at the end of the year. Either you take it or you leave it until the next school year if you weren't going to move from that school district. And my parents always said, that's part of saving for your retirement, saving for your vacation, saving for your book club, whatever it is that you wanted to do. They allowed us to do that. We also had, at our local bank, we also had vacation banking accounts. We also had school saving accounts. So my parents would just put money in there. And at the end of the year, even if you had $500, as a kid in seventh grade, at the end of the year, $500, that was a lot of money. So my mom would just always encourage us to pay ourselves first. And then she started giving away pens. And it just started out of the love of her heart, right? So she gave them out, and all of them had a godly message on it. But she basically gave every single person that she came in contact with a name pen. And I just have a few of them that she's given out over the years. And
what do they say on them? Just from the bank?
No, nothing about the bank. It's just anything that's spiritual. So one is like, thank you, God, for everything. Put God first in all that you do, and he will guide your step. Another pen says, thank you, Lord, you are love. And all of those were just messages from her, but she gave them out. She worked as a cashier. She didn't make a whole lot of money, but she went on vacation every year. She came down to Maryland every year. She always took the kids to vacation every year. And that was just her message, to pay yourself first. So she worked as a cashier probably for 38 years. Every person that came in that store, she gave them a pen. And it just talked about that I see you, I support you, you know who I am, and I just want you to know that I'm your biggest cheerleader. She gave it out to her church. She was in a nursing home in the last 7 years of her life. Every person that came in that nursing home and that worked with her as a nurse got an ink pen. And I just love that. So for the Women Retirement Security Day, I'm going to give out pens for that day too.
Oh, that's so nice.
There's so many things I love about that story. And one of it is, just highlight somebody who had paired both a take care of yourself with a positive message and made it positive in general, right? Because when we talk about money, a lot of times saving sounds like pain or all of these things. It's a sacrifice, but your mom had a way of making it sound like you were doing something for yourself and you were blessed by doing it, And so I'm excited that I think more women now are coming from families where their moms worked and maybe they have some of those more positive messages. But I still find it very amazing that your mom did it, back in the day, and that your community actually was strong enough to think that this was something to teach kids. So it just seemed like this is what you do. Mm-hmm. You weren't like 30 years old and going, what do I do now? You were kind of like, oh yeah, we always put a little money away. And isn't that exciting? More, you learn by doing rather than being told. I just hope that we can keep getting those little habits going and just that generosity of spirit that your mother has.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
Yeah. So Women's Retirement Day, I'm very excited. We're both on the committee to, really build this. What made you say yes to be part of this?
So I am on the Council for Women with PSCA, Plan Sponsor Corporation of America. And as a plan sponsor, handling all the benefits for the HR component for the employees, that sparked my interest. And then when we decided to focus on women, I'm like, oh yeah, we need to do this a lot more. And that's what really piqued my interest. And I'm excited about it. And I'm excited of everything that we've accomplished. And then now we have an actual date. So that's what really sparked my interest, by being on the Council for Women.
Okay. It also seems like it fits in with like advocacy work. Like this to me is like the most like what I used to do, trying to get people mobilized around a day, to take action, to educate, to advocate for change. Those things are like probably very much in your wheelhouse too.
Yeah. And I was at an event yesterday with the Elizabeth Glazier Foundation, and they were talking about retirement benefits for the military and how caregivers are the hidden figures of caregiving for military families. And they asked, what are your HR roles doing in that space? And I stood up and said, hey, we have a caregivers resource group, which is just a blend of employees that have recently lost family members or loved ones. And sometimes you just need to support each other. You need to support each other in grieving and all of that. But I also said, hey, for all of those women out there that are leaving the workforce because they have to be a caregiver, we're reminding people about the Women's Retirement Security Day. So jot that on your calendar for July 14th, more to come. But it was just a wealth of information that people just don't know about.
Yeah.
I have a question on AI because we like to ask about AI. HR is one of the spaces where AI is moving fast. I guess you could probably argue it's moving fast everywhere. What's your read on what it means for workers and specifically for benefits and retirement, and what it means for women, honestly, because I've been seeing a bit more published about how women are really embracing using AI and kind of mastering it. And I'd be curious if you see any kind of overlap or intersectionality between the conversations around AI in your space and like what this day also means.
Yes. AI, from an HR standpoint, there are so many different arms on it. From a recruitment standpoint, it's definitely an advantage for us because you can have 300 applications for one job. So basically, you want to kind of use some AI features to help weed out some of the ones that are not applicable or not qualified or for any of those things. The AI on the retirement side, I'm struggling with like what that really looks like, how we can help enhance that platform using AI. I think for women, I have friends in my circle that choose not to use AI. And I'm like, why? I just don't want to dumb myself down. And I'm like, you're going to be left behind. And whether you use it in your personal life to say, Chad, my arm is hurting. Why is my arm hurting? And you're asking all these questions. You can ask, hey, AI, today I have $25,000 in my savings account. I want to project 50,000 by the end of next year. How do I grow that? So those kinds of questions you can ask AI. And I think when we're looking at it from an HR standpoint, we're looking at governance. We're looking at security and privacy. And I have another network of women HR professionals that are talking about this every day. And some organizations are trying to build AI infrastructure within their own organization to keep security intact, to keep those transparency things internally versus having it externally. So the jury is still out on that when it comes to benefits, though. So I'm open to learn more about it as well.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Could I ask a follow-up question, even if we cut this, Katherine, just because I'm so curious?
Sure.
Well, I hear you say, I have friends too that are like, why do you use AI? And I also feel the same pressure that if I don't, I will be left behind. But, when you're applying for jobs, and I've applied for a lot of nonprofit jobs, but my role was always in comms.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is heavy on writing. And now we're saying, use this tool that writes for you so you can make it everything go with the algorithms, that you're tricking the algorithms. You can get the first conversation so you can prove that you can write, but you use the tool to write instead. So you're not really showing off your skills because you want it to work with the algorithm. So I feel like that's a real tension. And how are you sure you're getting the best? Do you think you're getting the best people if they can play to the algorithm? Like, is that part of what a skill set that people need? And so like, that's also what you're testing for when you're using AI in that hiring part of the process?
It depends. So one example I'll give you, we had fellows apply to a fellowship, which was 5-month programs from all over the world. And we found that their cover letters were all the same. Like they had the key buzzwords. We had to extend the deadline to help shape the recruitment I forget the application that we used at the time, but all the cover letters were looking the same. So we were like, okay, this is not good. So we modified the position description to be a little bit more elaborate when you're looking at the specifics of the role that we wanted to do. And then we found that maybe there was different creativity in some of the cover letters, but sometimes they're just all plain and boring because they're all the same. So you really have to look at it in that way to be more specific about the role that you're recruiting for. Another example I'll give, I'm part of my HR group. Some organizations don't read cover letters. Well, we read every single last one of them. That's a requirement. And also it weeds out the people. So if you ask for a resume and a cover letter and you just send the resume, you're gone because you didn't follow instructions. So it's those kinds of things that we're really using AI to help recruit the best talent for. And so that's I think people should just use it. Don't be afraid of it.
Yeah. Ooh, deep breath. That always makes sense. On hiring people still made up stories on resumes well before AI. So.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. They want that job. Yes.
Okay. So one last question. You had, I'd say, unusually good background education as a child on money, but was there one money myth about money that you had to unlearn once you were an adult? Was there any belief that you had as a kid that you had to unlearn once you became an adult?
The one thing that comes to mind is that having a credit card is going to put you in faster debt, not really setting up your credit. So when you are, during college years in the open community where the cafeteria was, every Sunday you had all of these banks trying to give you credit cards. But heck, we didn't even have a job. So, we were like, credit cards are not good. Do not get them. So of course we didn't get them. But the flip side is when you want to go buy that car, they're like, well, do you have any credit? No, because I don't have a credit card. So that was one of the myths that if I had to do over again, I would educate people a lot sooner on. That's the one thing that stuck out for me when I went to buy my first car. I didn't have credit, but at that time they had these student programs where even if you didn't have credit, you could do a first time owner. So I would, like you said, Catherine, I just have some successes in my trail that really helped to propel me in those areas. And one other thing I'll leave you with, when we were young, my parents always got savings bonds for all of us. My kids still have them from when they were smaller. And one of the things that I did when they were small, we would go to Disney World every year. So I bought them stock in Disney. They still have it today. So it helped me educate them on the stock market. It helped me educate them on the pluses and the minuses of what they see when they're looking at Google at the time. So I think more education for parents like that with resources is going to help educate and close the gap for women and men as well.
Well, amazing stuff. So, well, we very much appreciate you spending this time talking with us. If you have any more questions, you can always email us at sales@hunterbenefits.com. Do you have a contact? We can put a contact at the bottom of this if people have questions for you. Do you have one that you either want to give now or we put it later at the bottom?
Sure.
If people want to contact you.
Would that be, I guess LinkedIn, you can use LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Best way to get a hold of you is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's great. People just need to know what direction to go.
Yes. So I don't have all the social media I have Instagram, but I try to keep professional and personal outside of my
Keep them on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. LinkedIn is perfect.
Yep. Okay. Well, thank you once again. And I'm really super excited about July 14th coming and that we'll have a good build up to that day.
Awesome. Thank you both.